So you're thinking about selling final expense on an in-person basis, and maybe you're wondering exactly what to expect from a day-in-the-life position of what you would do as a final expense agent. What I plan on doing in this video is really going through the process of explaining to you what the business is like from an experiential first-person standpoint. I'm going to take you through a typical day of what it was like for me as a final expense agent before I started building DeFord Insurance Group, so that you can be better equipped and better understand exactly what to expect from selling final expense. And this is going to be a no BS one. I'm going to show you some pictures of what to expect and how it works so that you really know what you're getting yourself into. My name is David DeFord. I own DeFord Insurance Group. Please check out daviddeford.com to learn more. We focus on training new and aspiring and even experienced agents in the craft of selling final expense, whether in person or over the phone, with our specialization in one-on-one mentorship. Again, check out daviddeford.com/FAQ if you'd like to learn more about what we look for in agents. So as an agent, here's how my day would start. I'd first get up in the morning, probably about 5:30 in the morning. I've always been an early riser. And typically, sometimes in the early mornings, I'd go out and work out, maybe 30 minutes to 60 minutes just to get started. Really important to do that, guys, by the way, as a side note. In the final expense in-person business, you're going to be sitting down a lot. You need to make sure that you get your exercise in. There's a lot of agents in this business, sorry to say, that neglect their health, and they have a lot of health issues themselves that have been doing it for a long time. So make sure that you're intentful and that you get some kind of exercise in, whether it's just walking, moving around, weightlifting. I don't really care. Just don't ignore that stuff because it will hurt you in the long run. So I would start the morning usually getting up, getting prepped. I had the prior night had ironed my clothes, put all my stuff in my car, ready to roll. I don't want to like rush around and do that first thing in the morning because I wanted to get my early morning health routine done. I have breakfast and get in the car, and typically at this point, we'll end up going to the area of wherever my leads came from. So if it was like, say, Facebook leads, I'd have to cover a larger area, and I'd start in a general area wherever I had my first appointments at or where I'd want to door knock. Now, as far as when and how far I'd have to drive, it just depends on where we're going. So I live in Chattanooga. If I had leads around Chattanooga, I might be able to start a little bit later. As far as getting in the car and driving, if I had to drive an hour and a half, 2 hours, right, I'm gonna have to leave probably by 6:30, 6 o'clock in the morning if I want to get to my first appointment. So there is a good bit of drive time, guys. So a good recommendation as you get into the business, make sure that you have my YouTube channel exclusively playing in the background, or more seriously, have some success motivational videos, audio tapes, whatever, podcasts, etc. Preferably stuff that will help you grow from a mindset standpoint. Not stuff that's just junk that will just clog up your mindset, especially negative stuff. I wouldn't listen to the news if I was in the car. But I would try to expect to have that kind of stuff there as a way to learn while you drive around and attempt to make a living. So as far as first appointments in the morning, generally speaking, I would start at 8 o'clock in the morning. Now, a lot of people are surprised. You mean seniors are up that early? Yeah. A lot of these seniors in the final expense market are typically working class, blue collar types, and many of them would have to go work at a mill at 3 o'clock or 4 in the morning. And when you do that for like 20 or 30 years, you tend to get used to it. And even though you don't have to necessarily get up, you just do because that's just what you do. So a lot of these, not all of them, some people sleep in for sure, but a lot of our clients will be ready to get up and start looking at things at 8 o'clock in the morning. And that's something I discovered later on that I wish I would have implemented earlier because it just afforded me another appointment, got to get up earlier. So I start the day around 8 o'clock or 9. As far as door knocking goes, I generally wouldn't recommend it until 8 o'clock, or till, you could do 8 o'clock, but I wouldn't really door knock till 9 o'clock or so, just because I didn't want to hit people who are sleeping per se. But if you didn't have a preset appointment, I would start door knocking at 9 o'clock. And from this standpoint, we're actually going into the houses of our clients and giving first-person, in-person presentations in their home. This is not a profession where people come to you at your office. You have to go to them. That's just kind of how the dynamics of the business model works out. And presentations will last about an hour, hour and a half, usually at the client of the house, at their couch in their living room, or sitting at their kitchen table. If there's a spouse, you want both of them to meet at the same time. And you're just going to go through an educational presentation on how final expense works, figure out what it is they're looking to accomplish, and then explain to them how your product does a job to do that, and then intently ask for the business close, as we call it. And then your job is really to repeat this process through the day. Now, you could have preset those appointments either by calling the night before or outsourcing that to an appointment setter to set those appointments for you. I personally like that strategy, especially as you start to scale and building the business. I like to wake up and have 15 appointments preset. It's possible with enough lead flow. It makes the day really fun because you know you're going to write a lot of business with 15 preset appointments. My appointments would last, as I got really good in the business, about 45 minutes. Some will go longer than that. Some will go shorter than that as you pre-qualify them. But as a newer agent, expect an hour to an hour and a half. Now, between appointments, if you've got extra time, you want to do what's called door knock your lead. So we'd actually take the lead card, something like this, and then door knock on those doors of the people who didn't set appointments to try to get on the spot ad hoc appointments to then go ahead and present to them. Door knocking is a strategy that most agents have to do in order to be successful. It's just kind of the nature of the business. It works extremely well and is highly recommended. I'm not talking about cold door knocking. I'm talking about the lead cards or the forms that the clients fill out online and then using that as leverage to get into the door to present. It is something that really is a difference maker in maximizing your return on investment to the highest extent possible. So really at this point, we're repetitively doing the same thing throughout the day. Now, there would be days I'd stop at 3 or 4 so I could get home for dinner and spend time with my family. There were other days where I would go all night till like 9 o'clock at night and then drive home 2 hours to be home at 11. You're probably going to have to do a mix of both of those. There is an element of this business that you have to do at night when people come home from their doctor's appointments, errands, or work even. A lot of seniors are working still. So expect to do some later nights. You don't have to do exclusively late nights every single day. But if you want the most out of your business, you need to make sure that you do that. Now, what about a couple other things? Call-in service. Are you doing a lot of follow-ups? Are you doing a lot of service work? There's very little service work in the final expense business. You will get call-ins from time to time for clients who have questions. I generally schedule those in blocks of time during each day, or more preferably one day of the week, like either Monday or Friday. Do follow-up service work then. I try to disconnect the ability for my client to reach me immediately so I can focus on getting more sales immediately, and then kind of put some distance between them. So they may call into my home phone and then I go and respond later that night or the next day and schedule a time with them on my preset time to run my service appointments so that I can handle that at that point. But there's very little service work altogether. This is primarily in final expense a sales-oriented type of strategy. And then the last thing I think that's important is to make sure that you're attending training. So most of the time, and you should, in your organization or agency you'll be a part of or are a part of, have some kind of training. You always want to make sure that you sharpen the saw. So one of the things that happens with training is that when you learn something new, you get this elevation of knowledge, but then if you don't continually reinforce it and refine it, it kind of drops that down a little bit higher than it was before. So you always want to make sure that you're attending some kind of training, that you're reinforcing what it is that you believe, what it is that you've learned, so that you get a consistent over time elevation of your knowledge, skill set, and therefore ability to make money. Again, all the top producers I've ever talked to, they consistently attend at least one training call a week. Now, there's a lot of people that attend all the training calls a week and then they never go sell anything. You don't want to be that guy. But you do want to make sure that you're exposing yourself to an opportunity to make sure you're being the best that you can be. And even if you don't necessarily learn a lot, many times it's just one golden nugget that you just never really heard before that you do now as an experienced agent that makes all the difference in the refinement of, say, your script of what word to say or the tonality of how you say things, for example. So make sure that you're going to the training and you're doing everything necessary to get the most out of yourself and to refine yourself as best as you can into a top producer. So some takeaways here about the in-person final expense experience. My opinion is pretty boring. I know that may be surprising to you, but what a lot of people realize is this is kind of like working an assembly line. You're like on a line in a manufacturing plant, putting in the widget into the widget holder repetitively over and over the rest of your life. The interesting part of this business comes from the people you deal with. Our clients are quite interesting, to say the least. They're typically working class, blue collar and lower, urban, rural. There's all sorts of crazy stuff that happens with these people. It's a lot of fun if you have the right experience. Sometimes it's not for the faint of heart. You'll sometimes go into some dilapidated homes, some questionable neighborhoods that may be even dangerous. You can avoid those if you know how to plan your lead strategy. You'll deal with some people who are what I would call world-class procrastinators. They're interesting to say the least, but if you can learn to accept this and be okay with this, it's a wonderful business. It's very humbling, too, to see how the other half lives, if you will. And the nice thing about what we do is that we truly do help people that otherwise probably couldn't help themselves, that if we don't show up to these homes, that would have not otherwise bought life insurance and wouldn't have that valuable protection in place to take care of their family when they die. So you do good, noble work when it comes to selling final expense in person. Just understand that it comes with an interesting experience. So that's a day in the life of selling final expense successfully. If you'd like to learn more about joining an agency that will help you make the most out of every day as a final expense in person or telesales agent, please check out my agency. It's DuFord Insurance Group at davidduford.com. Click the FAQ button at the top to learn more about what we look for in agents that want to join DuFord Insurance Group. Also check out the testimonial section at the top to see the hundreds of testimonials that we have that account for the amazing results that we get our agents. And thanks so much as always for watching. We'll see you.